Hi Rajiv, how are you?
Good morning, Anil. How are you?
Doing good, thank you. Good to be here.
Good to be here. You're sounding a little serious in the morning. All okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Just give me a minute. I'll try to set some background. Yeah, I'm yeah happy to be here.
Lovely, lovely. Good, good. How are things?
Good. Just rested over the weekend. I was feeling a little unwell from Friday, so
Hmm.
took some time off. The weekend to rejuvenate, find my mojo.
How are you feeling now? All better?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah. I'm good.
Okay, okay. Well, in these times when somebody says I'm feeling a little unwell, people get curious, extra anxious as
Yeah, I
well.
know.
Isn't it? Very well. Superb. So, thank you so much, Anil, for accepting this invite and coming on. Very happy to have you. Before we get started, let me take a minute to introduce you to the audience. So, good morning, viewers and listeners. Welcome to this Leaders and Libraries event once again. And yet again, we have another guest, none other than Anil Santhapuri, Director Learning and Development, CGI. Now, if I have to list his credentials, we'll consume 10 minutes of this time, and there's a restriction on time. So, I'm going to be talking about a couple of things that the man has done. It's quite an impressive profile. He is an executive coach. He is a digital transformation enthusiast. He is also a technical advisory board member for GSDC, which is Global Skill Development Council, and multiple awards and recognitions as leading L&D practitioner, chief learning officer from multiple forums. So, whew, Anil, that's an amazing and impressive list that you have accomplished. We are so happy to have you today. Welcome on board.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate what you're doing, especially using books as a metaphor. So happy to be here and contribute. So,
Sure. Thank you. And also for everyone, he's a voracious reader. He reads a lot, and I've heard about that. But after interacting with him and having him as a guest, and I'm also part of a WhatsApp group that he invited me to, we realized that he reads a lot. It's an amazing collection of knowledge that you pick up from multiple places, and it's very, very impressive. So thank you once again coming in. So let's straight away dive into the first question, Anil. So tell me, how did your love for books start?
oh, that's a great question. So it goes way back to my childhood. It's funny, we talk about um, India and the lack of resources in India, but when I was very young, probably even 2 years, 3 years, my grandfather used to visit a public library near.
Mm-hmm.
I'm originally from Hyderabad, so I remember so vividly. In this public library, there was this children's section where
Mm.
there's this small tables of 2 feet high and wood tables with chairs, colored chairs. He used to drop me there, and I used to play with those children's books. So, that's the earliest memory of me getting introduced to books, being part of a library, and uh, libraries have become part of my, as I started growing.
Mm.
Yes, I did my engineering. Again, library is there. So it's been part of my journey. Books and libraries are part of my journey. Some books which had a big impact on me very early. Discovery of India by Jawaharlal Nehru,
Yeah.
book gifted to me by my grandfather, so I cherish it. And then uh, the book which I think everybody reads once they hits their teens is Alchemist. Had a huge influence on me. Then The Prophet by Khalil Gibran was another. And then once I got introduced to career, Mojo was actually one of the first books I've read. And interestingly, when I was at a career transition, it really helped me. Many books followed after, especially few books which I cherish. Keep going back to read is from a professional perspective is Leadership Pipeline by Ram Charan.
Uh,
Something you always need to go back to see how you're doing. So yeah, that's a quick story of my journey
Interesting,
with books.
interesting. In fact, the Prophet, I started reading for some reason I didn't complete it. And after you also had posted it on the group WhatsApp of us, I think I should go and pick it up and finish it.
And books like Prophet are, they're not a one sitting reading kind of books. It takes a lot to sink in. So that's why I always, almost for last 20 years, I always carry a copy of book Prophet in my bag. Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
various sections, like the section on friendship, love, work. Like one of my favorite quotes, I think I was quoting in the group other day was, work is love made visible. And that's so powerful, right? When you think of it that way. And
Yes.
that's kind of linked to Mojo in a way. That's what I was quoting. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, which is what Mihaly also talks about in the concept of flow, right? When you reach that particular point, work, love, passion, happiness, all kind of joins together. There's no demarcation in your head at all, right? And everything happens because you love it.
Yeah, and then you feel this strange experience of timelessness. You kind of time stops, right? And that's a great feeling, um, yeah, of being in the flow. So
Absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
true.
Yeah, yeah. Lovely, lovely. Such an early age, and you said started playing with books. I love the way you said that. People would say I used to play with my friends, and you started playing with books, thanks to the great man, your grandfather. I remember the discovery of India that my father gave me, and it finished it in one sitting because I have a very keen interest on history as a subject, right? Yeah, lovely, lovely. So you started there, and tell me, Anil, you've grown as a successful leader. How has Anil the reader contributed towards Anil the leader?
No, I think that's a that's a great question. See, reading, I mean, books, and I know we're talking about books, but these days uh, there's so much of micro learning, small YouTube clips, WhatsApp, and internet. But reading has always been part of my life from beginning. It's interesting, at times when I was really bored in my job, I used to read, and at times when I'm really excited about the work I'm doing, I'm reading because when I'm excited, I'm learning more about what to do, how to build deeper skills, to be an expert, be a practitioner.
Right.
And when I'm bored, I'm actually investing for the future. So when I see those phases in my career very earlier where it's an interesting story. So I'm actually a mechanical engineer by education, and worked in IT industry for 6 years, then moved into HR L&D. So when I was making the transition, it was difficult because everyone around me said don't do it, and I was working in IT, I was working in SAP space, making a lot of money. Everyone I went to advise, except for few, said don't do it. So it was very difficult. So those are the days I used to read a lot, especially around management, leadership, a lot, even before I transitioned into the role. So that kind of
Mm,
piqued my interest. I started investing in myself. So
mm,
I mean, like talking about almost 10, 12, or maybe 15 years back, every day 3 to 4 hours reading something. And now also I read, but it's more focused. Either it's an introduction to a new perspective,
mm.
concept, or to deep dive and learn. So now it's more, I'm very, uh, picky about what I read and very focused about what I read. But it's always been part of my journey. In fact, it actually helped me, uh, you know, see, it's also about how you look at
Yeah.
your leader. For me, leadership is all about nobody is going to give you exactly what you want. You have to find opportunities and do things. So for me, the reading I've done always has given me the edge when I see an opportunity to get started to just
Mm.
and do it. So that way, reading has always been my armor, like an armor which helps me protect me and also gives me the edge. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. I think very rightly put. Because end of the day, every book that you pick and read, you become the next version of yourself. The version one to version two to version three to version four. Right? It just keeps happening. Right? Most of them talk about very similar concepts and thoughts and ideas. But every time you pick it up and listen and read it from different authors and perspectives, so much of churning happens in your own head. Right? And it just gives you a sudden, wow, this is interesting perspective I never thought about. Right? One of the guests said, Rajiv, all is very interesting, but end of the day, for me, leadership is equal to only one word: influence. Nothing else falls into its place. I said, yeah, that makes tremendous sense. Simplest word that could probably say what leadership is all about. Yeah.
I don't know who that guest is, but I completely endorse that view because leadership is not authority, leadership is not role, it's not title, it's influence. And the way there's so much we can talk about it, but the way things have been changing, you have to work with your um, to get anything done in these days, You have to think beyond your team, think
Yeah.
beyond your organization. And there are a couple of terms. There's one a very good book called Team of Teams.
Mm.
And then another term which I really like is called the ecosystem or the talent ecosystem. So
Yeah.
anything done, because we are living in such an interconnected world, you have to work outside, think outside your organization
Mm.
and system. And your authority, your title is not going to help you at all. What helps is
Absolutely.
your influence, your ability to influence. So I completely endorse that view.
Absolutely. Especially in the democratic world and leadership space that all of us are working in, it's all about influencing, right? Lovely. So tell me, Anil, you picked up this lovely book among all other books, Mojo by Marshall Goldsmith himself. Another powerful book amidst his other two books of Triggers and What Got You Here Won't Get You There. There's again a powerful book. Why is Mojo so important for leaders, especially the budding leaders that you would recommend they should find? And how did you find your Mojo?
Yeah, I mean, the first of all, the title itself is so catchy, right? And then say just, do you have your mojo? Yes or no? The answer is very simple. And I was just looking up the etymology of the word mojo is still gray, but I think it has some African roots. And from the word moko, M-O-C-O, moko, and the closest meaning is magic. So it's very interesting, right? So to what's your magic? Like, what's the magic you want to create in the world? And that's the mojo, right? So I was saying, when I was contemplating a career change very early, I think that's when I came across this book and I read, and I very vividly remember there's the scorecard you have to do, the mojo scorecard, which
Mm.
I'm planning to do once again, thanks to you. uh, that really helped, kind of
I did that last month.
Oh, excellent. I found the online version, so I'm going to do it. So it talks about, Mojo professionally and personally,
Yeah.
and finding the balance. But for me, when I first read the book, it was about transitioning. I was in this thought about how do I transition from my IT career to a
Mm.
HR and learning
Mm.
career. And this book really helped because you can be good at many things. In my case, I was good at what I was doing in IT, but I was not really enjoying it. So it was important for me to find meaning. And he uses two words very repetitively: happiness and meaning.
Yeah.
And over a period of time, I kind of developed my own personal system where I use two other words: being and doing.
Yeah.
Being is who you are as a person, what are your values, your ability to live the values every minute, every moment. And doing is what you want to achieve. So if you being gives you happiness because you are who you are every moment,
Mm.
and gives you meaning because there's sense of purpose, right? So when I look back, my entire personal um, goal system is based on being and doing goals. And if you have
Mm.
time, I can quickly share some of those thoughts with you.
Mm.
It goes back to what Marshall Goldsmith talks about meaning and happiness, and it helped me make the change. And even in my career as a coach,
Mm.
generally people come up with many. Coaching is all about scratching the surface and going deeper. So generally
Correct.
people problems. Hey, I don't like my job. I want to change my job, or I don't like my manager. I want to be better. Things like that. But finally, it comes down to Mojo. People understanding because again, Marshall speaks about mojo and nojo, right? The upward spiral and
Yeah.
downward spiral. The idea is to know exactly in a very conscious way what takes you in upward spiral, and also knowing what can take you in a downward spiral, and being very conscious. So that's why it's a very important book. I would highly recommend. It's not just a read. It has a lot of tools, scorecard. It has some resources on the online website of Marshall Goldsmith. So it's a very useful for me. It actually helped me build my own personal goals.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. So you very strongly recommend that budding leaders to pick this book, if not others, to start reading, isn't it?
not just read, reread. Say each time you feel you are on a downward spiral or you have a sense that you are not enjoying what you're doing, go back to the book. Even when you're doing good, keep going back to see what's sticking and continue doing it. So a copy which everyone should keep uh, always.
Interesting. Interesting. So I'm going to take you a little deeper in this Mojo Nojo point, right? Now, I'm sure all of us would have had this Nojo moments and we would be experiencing the gravity that is pulling us down, right? And the amount of thrust that we need to give against the gravity to get the Mojo is super tough. I mean, he just wrote it as 4 words, 4 letter word, and just walked off. Technically, it's not that easy, isn't it? You need tremendous amount of thrust, like the rocket, to just pull yourself out into the stratosphere and just get free, right? It's not easy. How did you use those 4 building blocks that he talks about in your
Yeah,
life, Anil, to get yourself out of Nojo and move to the Mojo? I would love to hear that.
yeah. So I mean, that's awesome. I made some notes. Let me go back to the notes. So, you know, knowing who you are, which is the first block of identity, is very, very important. And what I've done almost 12 to 15 years back, and which is a strong foundation of the coaching and the work I do,
Mm,
is I help people identify their core values,
mm,
because we all know who we are in a way, but some of us have articulated it, some of us do not. So
mm,
the first thing I done for myself way back was identify what my core values, and here I use a tool. There's an organization called Values in Action. The
mm,
website is called VIA, the short form of Values in Action, character.org. There's a free assessment there. I highly recommend, if somebody has not done it, to go and take the free assessment. It gives you your top 5 personal values. And later, as you progress, the other assessment I strongly recommend is Gallup Strength Finder.
yeah.
You, what are your strengths as a professional? But
Mm,
going back to values, when you said when things go back in a downward spiral,
mm,
uh, you know, I do a lot of work in the space of personal values, both at work, outside work. So, the example I use is of a stock market ticker.
mm,
Sometimes stock market crashes, goes down,
yeah.
uh, but it can go up immediately. Also depends on how you fix it, right?
Correct.
So think of it think of this simple litmus test. Anytime, or
Mm,
maybe all the viewers, including you, look at last 1 week and think of an incident personally or professionally which put you under stress.
mm,
And think of another moment where personally or professionally it gave you were happy.
mm, mm,
Now there's a very strong chance the situation where when you put under stress, one of your core values was compromised, or you are not allowed to live your core value.
mm.
And the moment where you're really happy is when you are able to fulfill your core value,
Beautiful.
personal value or core value. So when you start looking at it that way, it's very easy to pinpoint what's working and what's not working, and you can go back and fix. The moment you fix it, it the stock ticker goes up. So your
Mm,
happiness, as it says, goes up. So knowing your personal values can actually change over time. So it's
yeah.
important to keep a close eye on it. Has been my personal mantra and helped me a lot. So whenever I do coaching and work with people, mentor people, I always start with that. So sense of identity is very important from that perspective. Then sense of achievement is also, moving to the next block, and
Mm,
about meaning and impact. And this is where it's interestingly, this book played a huge influence on my life. So I built my own personal system, which is based on core values. But then it does an interesting story. So I'm sure most of us watched the movie Jerry Maguire, and there's this scene very early in the movie Jerry Maguire where he wakes up, but he has this insight and wakes up at 2 o'clock in the night. He writes a memo, goes to a copier shop, copies it, and puts all the copies in the office for everyone, and he loses his job next day. It's a different
yeah.
story. So he has this aha moment, and it's interesting. He keeps calling it, it's a breakdown or a breakthrough, breakdown, breakthrough. So interestingly, many years back, I had this kind of similar aha moment where I was thinking about my goals, personal goals for a long time, and suddenly I woke up at 2 a.m. in the night, or 2 or 3 a.m. in the night, and said,
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking at my goals completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think I should break down my goals to being goals and doing goals.
Ah,
This is who you are as a person, your values, what you want to be every day, and doing goals is what you want to do.
correct.
For me, being goals is your sense of identity, who you
Mm,
are as a person. Doing goals is what you want to achieve.
correct.
And then I built this system. Maybe if you have time in later, I can quickly show a glimpse where I wrote my being goals. Generally, being goals come from your core values. So
Yeah.
it's important to know your core values. Doing goals are very much aligned for me, aligned in the space of learning, leadership development, coaching, and back to community. So
Mm,
I visit the personal being and doing goal system once a year,
mm.
almost during Christmas. I sit down for a week. I revisit my being and doing goals.
All
I
right.
go back to my mentor, get his opinion on it, and then share it with people who are close to me. For example, last year, 2019 December, I went back to my being and doing goals and tweaked both. In being goals, I was always about influencing and giving back.
Mm.
I did this piece around servant leadership,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
very difficult, but I wanted to consciously, intentionally do it. So I did that piece there. In
Mm,
doing goals, like aligned to the same, I'm going to contribute to creating at least 10,000 liters, so, which is like a bee hack, right? Big, hairy, audacious, and
mm, mm,
big. So it's important to have your being and doing goals, but also keep refreshing it. And then going back to the day I had the Taha moment where I wrote my first draft of being and doing goals. I
mm.
did something crazy, but also something very inspiring for myself. The
Yeah.
moment I wrote it in the night, I posted it on LinkedIn. I said, if I'm serious about it, I need to show it to the world. I'm not
Correct.
going to keep it in my diary with me. So I tied back to the four blocks. So identity is your being goals, achievement is your doing goals, and how people see you being and doing is your reputation,
Yeah.
which is which Marshall talks about. What others think you are,
Mm.
that's also important, right? Because perception plays a big role.
It does.
This is where influence comes, right? Just talk about it. Then the fourth one is the humbling fact about being a leader. If every plan you made will succeed, then how will you learn? And if every plan you made will work without any challenges, how will you grow?
Mm.
So acceptance is a big part, and this is where I kind of relate to Marshall Goldsmith at a very personal level. He's Buddhist in his personal practices, and I also do some Buddhist practices. So I can relate to acceptance at both at a professional and a personal level, because uh, there's only so much you can change. There's only so much you can control. You can keep the intention. Intention is the most important thing. Influence, intention from a sense of being,
Mm.
influence from a sense of doing, but not everything is in your control, and that's what humbles you as a person, and it should, because or else you're not learning, and when you don't learn from your mistakes, or don't learn when things don't
Yeah.
go, you don't grow as a person. So for me, those four building blocks are really powerful. So identity, sense of being, achievement, sense of doing, reputation, how people see your being and doing. So it's important to ensure you are very authentic,
Yeah.
also transparent in what you do. And acceptance is having the grace to uh, you know know that sometimes things don't go your way, or you give your best but things don't happen, and that's what makes you wise. So, yeah, those are the four blocks.
Very, very, very nicely articulated. Thanks for that, Anil. What's coming to me as I'm listening to you is probably the acceptance block, which is very strong in you, is what is pushing you to relook at yourself every year, finding the being and doing of Anil Santhapuri as an individual is very impressive and very inspiring, because I've always told people in my interventions and workshop that all these tools and techniques and methods that the great authors talk about are not the tinkles and tanda mamas to just read and leave it. You can actually bring life from those pages and apply it in your life and see the benefit for yourself. They're great thinkers. If we could have done that, I would have written a book. But I'm currently only in my stage where I'm reading a book. The Marshall is far, far superior, where I have reached my own level of maturity or understanding of life and whatever you want to talk about, right? So they're great tools, and you are doing it by figuring out two clear boxes of being and doing. I think it makes tremendous sense. As you rightly said, acceptance the moment you do, and again, he talks about this book triggers, right? The triggers from environment are so powerful. You cannot ignore those triggers at all. And those triggers will come and manifest in its own formats and fashions, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so true in different ways. And for example, we talk about this three, and we're talking about budding people, budding in the
Mm.
professional. So sense of independence is important for all of us.
Yeah.
My anchors, career anchors is independence. I'm very high on independence, and whatever career choices I've made where I look for not for the brand, not for the title, but how much independence will I get. So we all, at least early in the career, or when you're individual contributors or you're a team lead or a manager, there's this sense of independence and do things your way for the right reasons. But then the moment you start becoming leader, you will see the whole everything is tilted on an ecosystem where there is sense of interdependence.
Mm.
Interdependence, and look from lessons in biology, look from lessons in history, philosophy, doesn't matter. uh, Human beings, people are a function of their environment.
Yeah.
It's a big role, and we can't take it away from the equation. And once we add that into equation becomes really complicated. It's like
Correct.
in control every with every variable adding. So I think that's true. And for me, like I remember having conversation with my mentor one day. I was like changed a job, and we were having a chat saying it feels like I'm doing the same thing over again,
Mm.
but in a different scale and a different intensity and a different organization. So he laughed and he said, "What do you think I've been doing for last 3 decades? Figure out what you need to do very early in your career. Your ability to consistently repeat the results
Mm.
in a different scale, in a different environment, in a different context, validates what kind of leader you are.
Correct.
This you need to do turnaround. Some places you need to stabilize. Some places you need to start grounds up. Some places you just need to react, like how we had to respond to the COVID situation.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, Acceptance, yeah, there's a big part. So I agree with you. And environment, and then so my advice there for our listeners is independence is very important, but you should know what's. In Seven Habits, they explain it very clearly. What's your circle of influence and
Yeah.
circle of control, and then how you can keep pushing boundaries of your.
Correct.
Only you can do it through influence, and it takes time. That's where you need patience. Acceptance gives you patience. Acceptance gives you, a little bit of humility also that's
It
needed,
does. It does. It
or else
does.
you're never going to go back to your game plan and see how you have to change it. So.
Absolutely. Very, very nicely articulated. It's easy to read this word acceptance, but it's very philosophical, isn't it? Whether you talk about Vedanta, you talk about Advaita Vedanta, any concept they talk about this acceptance as one of the most tough things because you rightly said, Anil, till I don't reach that spot of acceptance, I won't be able to transcend myself to an adjustment, isn't it? As long as I stay in denial and stay in confusion, I'm never going to accept anything. Until I don't accept, I will not be ready to adjust. I'll only be getting into avoidance syndrome.
That's so true. The way you use the word adjust, because adapt also, right? Adapt and adjust. I'll go back to values for a minute and give an
Mm,
example. See, there are many definitions of what are core values, right? People, what you like doing, what gives you mojo, things like that. But one of the definitions I really like about personal values is, um, you know, um, what they are your guiding principles who define your day-to-day decisions. So values are not something which affect you once every month or once every 6 months. Everyday choices you make, like what shirt you wear, what you drink, how you talk to people, values affect that. Another definition, which is one of my favorite, is values define your boundaries.
it does. Beautiful.
Really defines your boundaries of what you do, what you don't want to do. I want to take on the same example and say acceptance. When you come to acceptance is also about knowing your boundaries,
Yeah, yeah,
what you can change, what you can't change. Then when you look at boundaries, there are two things, right? One is outside the boundaries, what you can't change, but there's so much available within your boundaries of, the two words, right? So, and I use this a lot in coaching, resource and resourcefulness.
correct.
Resources are tangible and limited, like time, money, ability to think, are
People,
resources. But resourcefulness are infinite, like patience,
yeah,
learning, growth mindset, and courage,
correct.
many things, right? So the moment you hit the acceptance scenario, you switch. You need to switch from resource to resourcefulness,
Correct.
dig deeper into what the moment requires. So maybe it's a moment of learning, sense of humility, saying, I need patience.
Yeah.
The system is not ready for this. Or it's a moment of courage where you need to stand up for what you believe in, even
Mm.
if that's not what's accepted in the system. Or it's a moment, I know, just wisdom saying, hey, I did this, therefore this happened. Now I understand myself better. It's a moment of awareness. So I think acceptance is a great place to dig deeper into resourcefulness, first yourself and then people around you. I think that's when yeah, I like the word because it has a very uh, uh, strong connotation. So yeah.
It does. It does. It does. I think you brought in the core value very nicely, Anil, because for me, core values. All of us have got multiple values, right? It's not that one value we have. But the difference between the power of the word value becomes even more powerful the moment you put the prefix called core. Without the prefix core, the weight of the value word may probably diminish a little bit, just for discussion's sake. And all of us have got multiple values, but core values become that, how do I say, becomes a twig or that small wood that you can hold on and sail through safe even in any turbulent waters, isn't it? It will definitely take you to the banks. So you may have compromised or negotiated on other values, but these two or three core values, they're non-negotiable. At any cost, I would never let go of them. I would stand by it, stand for it, stand off it, isn't it? I think that's very powerful.
And that's what builds your reputation. And extreme examples here, but uh, when you think of Steve Jobs, what's the first, the common word which most people will describe is that two, three words. One is creativity,
Mm.
innovator. Actually, radical innovator is the most common thing they describe. And if you go to his core value, innovation was his core value.
Yeah,
When you think of somebody like Oprah Winfrey, she's known for many things, but what made her who she is today is her ability to authentically communicate.
absolutely.
Communication is her core value, and she has this ability to interview anybody for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and let them reveal their true self.
Yeah.
The moment you know your core values and you stick to it, as you're saying, that becomes your reputation, that becomes your brand. That's what people recall you for.
So you very strongly, in a way, also are telling through this conversation, I know that the budding leaders who are in their initial stages of their career growth, where achievement is a very important element for them. Success, recognition, growth, money, all are very important. We also had this, is not that it's less important today.
Mhm.
Uh, you still recommend them to hold on to this acceptance building block very strongly, and others will fall through.
Definitely. And look at what COVID has done to all of us. Like, it is a great manifestation of acceptance at a global level, right? Like, any
Yeah.
sort of crisis brings out many things which are not in our control, but
Mm,
it's taught us so many lessons, like almost recalibrated everything we know of, lifestyles, decisions we make, the choices.
correct.
And did we have a choice? Like, for months and months together, we're sitting at home. We had to first start by accepting it, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of form the new norm around it. So, and this is where, and I'm sure you covered this in your earlier topics, and our
Mm,
leaders know about this. We use the term VUCA world. We say
yeah.
it's a world outside, volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, so on and so forth. So change is going to be paramount in the future, and just like now, it's not going to stop. In fact, it's going to be disruptive change. In fact, there's this professor from I think Wharton, Ian Woodward, he gave a twist to the VUCA. Now he calls it DVUCA. So he added disruption in the front and diversity in the back. So, and it's even more complicated. It's complex. So change is going to be a regular day affair now for all of us.
Mm.
Tense is a big part of it, and therefore, achievement is important. I agree, and I'm a huge believer in staying current and achieving, but figuring out your sweet spot of
Mm,
achieve in alignment with your strengths, in alignment with your values
mm.
in the long run. And that's what in the book, uh, Marshall gives this beautiful 2 by 2 of long run benefit versus short term
Yeah.
happiness versus meaning graph. So if you don't figure your sweet spot of your values, your strengths, keep reinforcing your values and keep building your strengths, you'll never play in the zone of succeeding. You might just
Correct.
initially in my career, I used to get this feedback from my mentor a lot, from
Mm,
my just, hey Anil, you tend to sign up for a lot of things. You keep raising your hand for everything, which is good. But sometimes when you sign up for 10 things, you do 8 things well and 2 things slip
mm,
up.
mm.
So when I look to this graph, it's stimulating, right? Where
Yeah.
you, and when I look at it, my at my personal values, it was learning was important for me. So it still is important. So I used to do a lot of, even over the weekend I was having conversation with my mentor, and it was interesting. I was trying to get my mentor onto a keynote in my organization, and this guy has like 3.5 decades of experience. He can wake up in the sleep and talk about anything related to learning. It's like a 2 hour keynote. And when I presented the topic, he said, I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You you taught me all this and you're saying you don't want to do it. He said, I know everything about this topic, but this topic doesn't excite me. So I don't think I can do justice to this. So I would rather recommend somebody. So I recommended somebody else to
Okay.
whom I should pursue to get as a keynote speaker. And then we went on talking to him, saying, I said, if I were you, I would have done it. And he said, that's the thing with you. You keep raising your hand for everything. So I'm giving an example to say that over time, you know your sweet spot, you
Yeah.
know what you're exceptionally good at, align to your values, your goals, and then that's when you play in the zone of what gives you both short-term happiness and long-term meaning,
Yeah.
zone of success. Early in career, it's good to it's good to sign up for more projects, raise hands, but ensure if you want to sustain your streak of achievement and success,
Mm-hmm.
know your boundaries. It's very important. What you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. That's when you will. Like for me, as I mentioned, independence is important. Ability to do things in a new way. Creative entrepreneurship is important to me, and generally. Um Creativity, independence, and for me, it's always about also aligning to a higher cause. Like the
Correct.
organization I work for should need to have a bigger meaning,
Larger purpose.
larger purpose. So any jobs I've taken, sometimes I've worked with bigger brands, sometimes I work with unknown brands, but it was always important to,
Mm.
when I go back and see my career anchors, the choices I made were always aligned to this. Do I have the independence to do it? Do I have the creative ability to demonstrate creative entrepreneurship? Generally, I've associated myself with organizations where I had to turn around the learning function or start a learning function. That's when you have a huge opportunity and a sense of independence. So I think my advice would be figure out what those values and sweet spots are. Then you will can repeat the achievement cycle over and over. If you initially you might sign up for everything, but later you have to be very picky, including the
Yeah. You will.
roles you want to work for.
You will. You will. So when you were working on the sweet spot and things which are your area of strength, and like David Rock talks about this as accentuating the positive in the book Quiet Leadership, right? Which is about working on your strengths, right? No point in all of us want to accentuate our positives, and that takes us, it gives us impetus and takes us to the next step, right? And he talks about performance is equal to potential minus interference. Very powerful equation, is it? And there are multiple interferences that Marshall talks about in the book Trigger also. How do I nullify those interferences and get my potential to perform in my current role? Right? There's a myth that potential is all about future. No, I can still get the potential to deliver in my current performance, right? So if I get those interferences out, very very nicely done. Tell me, how did you work on getting those interferences out,
Mm.
finding your mojo, and Marshall calls these interferences as mojo killers. Tell me two mojo killer that you worked on, and also tell me two that you strongly recommend for the budding leaders of the current world.
Yeah, I know it's a great question. In fact, I think um, the author of Alchemist, it could be in the book Alchemist or somewhere else, I'm forgetting. Uh, there's a quote which says, one often finds his or her destiny in the path they try to avoid.
Alchemist.
Alchemist, right? Yeah. So it's exactly this. So interference is not um, something which is stopping you from your achievement. Interferences actually test your leadership, right? And
Yeah.
actually help you grow. And there are many. I mean, very early in my career, overcommitting was one, uh, and then independence was another. Uh, but if I go back to the book, it talks about many things, right? From people having victim mindset, staying in,
Mm.
assuming things will change, just enough, enduring, and this entire type of mojo.
Which are
Uh,
the two for you?
so the two I would ask everybody to keep in mind is, you know, perfection.
Hmm.
So trying to be perfect is not going to work. It never worked. It's not going to work in a VUCA world. In fact, very often in my current role, it's happening a lot over the last 6 months. Uh, we tend to do a lot as a team, and we most times are right. Sometimes we miss it. So I'm the first. There we have this um, the learning and development inbox. I keep an eye on it. Whenever there's a escalation or anything, I'm the first person to respond. I always start by apologizing.
Mm.
And it's not, and I'm being authentic in two ways, right? One is I'm being authentic because I head the department, so it's important for me to say you are important for us as clients. Therefore, I'm apologizing, and also apologizing from a perspective of it's an opportunity to learn and grow. It's not like we did our best and we failed. It's like, yeah, we're evolving. And sometimes
Yeah.
conversations with our stakeholders, and I thought those conversations will be very difficult, where I said,
Correct.
me and my team, we are adjusting to this. We need time to evolve and learn. And they were okay with it. And I went to the conversation thinking they'll jump on me, they'll be upset. But the moment I said, yes, we had an issue in the project and we are fixing it, we need time. We never did anything like this before. And there's so much of acceptance from them. The moment I agreed there was an issue and agreed that we are on the growth cycle of learning, instead of going to any meeting or going even with team to defend your point of view, especially when you know you're wrong. So that's my advice. It's a personal shift I personally made, and that's the thing I'm working with my team a lot these days is to say, you know, accept it. It's fine, and from a perspective you'll grow because your reputation comes from consistency.
Correct.
So they will know in the next interaction, in the next team, in the next program, if you made an incremental improvement or not. And then they will accept you. And that's the reputation, right? You will that you are serious about your words. So don't defend yourself. Don't go for perfection. If you don't know something, say you don't know. If
Yeah.
you're wrong. But commit to improving. That's my, again goes back to the broader growth mindset piece. But that's my big advice these days, and I'm getting very comfortable with it. And especially even with senior sponsors, when I work, I say, this is the challenge I have. This is the roadblock, or this is where I need help, or these are the um, boundaries we're dealing with, and I'm getting very comfortable talking about it. So, and I work with my team. So that would be my first advice. Um, and waiting for the right opportunity is another big one, in my opinion,
Right.
because there's never a right opportunity.
Correct.
They just keep slipping away. They just keep slipping away. There's no golden goose. There's no, the best opportunity waiting for you. You need to create opportunities,
Mm.
or you need to take the half-baked opportunities, turn it around. So for me, those are the two big ones. Trying to defend yourself, trying to stay perfect, and waiting for the big opportunity to fall in your lap are the two big things I would ask people to avoid.
Very nice. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. It makes tremendous sense because I think in the kind of world in which the budding leaders are, there are a huge amount of interferences happening around. Maybe when we were growing as leaders, there was far less. I guess the job of our leaders were a little easier than the leaders of the current world. Not to sound very old. Yeah. I think it's important because there is definitely I see a how do I call it? I don't want to sound generalizing, Anil, but I don't know if the search for the version 2 is so hard inside them that they don't seem to be getting quenched at all, right? And the quench is very momentary, and because of which there is some element of restlessness. the water is not calm in their own head, which pops out in terms of behaviors of asking multiple questions, which is good to ask, but it's not coming out of curiosity, but it's coming out of restlessness. Maybe they're still searching for their contentment, and I think that is something they need to quickly identify and rest their head with, as against rushing through this identity race.
No, that's a we can talk a lot about this. uh,
So that's a separate subject completely.
yeah, yeah. So restlessness, like very early in my career, or I'm restless now too, but compared to early in my career, I was extremely restless. Restlessness is actually nothing wrong, and as long as you know how to channelize that energy. But I do agree with you, restlessness of, you know, it should not be restlessness coming from not knowing what to do,
Correct.
which is also fine. But if restlessness is because you're looking at others and saying they're progressing, they're growing, they're getting promotions, they're
Yeah,
getting money,
which is
and
what I
I'm
was
not
talking
getting it,
about.
that's wrong. But restlessness from, if you know exactly what your being and doing goals are, or your achievement and identity are, and you're restless because you're not linked to them in the current environment, current context, that's good, because you can always change, you can always take a risk and move on. But I see a lot of time spent in peer comparison.
Correct.
To an extent is fine, because it's about, you should always know, like, reputation. I personally strongly believe in it. So comparison is a part of it. But again, I think the two things, right? I think the balance there is,
Hmm.
um, you are the CEO of your own career,
Lovely.
and every career, like every organization, is different. So you cannot copy. If I want to start another Google, I'll fail because there's already a Google. If I want to start another Facebook, I'll fail. I need to figure out what's unique about me. You know what's the unique thing I can give, um, to the world. So there's an interesting story about this. It's a real story. I'm forgetting his name. This guy who does, on a business cards, he does doodles. So, and so basically, let's say you go to him and say, I want a unique business card. So on the front side will be your name, your information. On the back side, he'll do a doodle which is unique to your organization. And that's what made him famous.
Hmm.
And I forgot his name. So, and it started as a hobby. He used to travel in train to work. I think it's in
Hmm.
someplace. And he was looking at buildings and everything and doodling. His
Hmm.
passion. So, but in the story, what I really like is he became an entrepreneur later, which is a different story. But the key message for me is, somebody interviewed him and said, your business model is so simple, anybody can copy it.
Hmm.
Just drawing a doodle behind a business card. What is so unique about your business model? Why are you still an entrepreneur? He said, yeah, there are 100 people who can copy my model, automate it, but I can bet on it. Not many people can bring the passion I bring to the doodling. So
which 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 I relate to so much, Anil, because I have had a similar experience of somebody telling me, Rajiv, you call yourself as Leadership Elements, India's only book-based leadership consulting house. Anybody like Anil Santhapuri, is a voracious reader, can start a company and say, I'm going to give you something based on books. I said, yeah, anybody can copy. I'm not claiming it's IP, or I've not even gone for IP as of now. Whereas one of my lovely friends and one of the guests said, Rajiv, you should apply for IP. It's a very unique model. I should probably think about it in 21, 22 as a founder of the organization. But yeah, tomorrow you can do it. Yeah, I mean, it's simple. But the fact is, my passion for book, when it becomes a business model, the experience by the world is going to be absolutely different, isn't it? Which is what that doodle guy is talking about. A simple scribbling became a doodle, and a simple doodle became a business model for him.
exactly. And like, you are a great example, and that guy's a great example. So the idea is, people can copy your models, or you can copy others models, but they cannot r- replace the person.
Right.
Is you, your values. So I think as long as our viewers understand that and identify who that person is and why are they doing this, that will, and always, keep that keep improving that piece. When I say improving, knowing who you are, have that sense of awareness always helps.
Yeah.
From an achievement and reputation perspective, achieving to your potential, that's why I really like what you mentioned about, success is potential minus interference. And then also, ensuring others know about it as who you are, the reputation bit, right?
Yeah.
Rather be restless on that rather than be restless about the money or the salary or and in fact there was this interesting research done by my mentor uh, many years back. um, he was working with this
When you
group.
say mentor, you're talking about Ed every time?
Yeah, him, Ed Cohen, yeah. So there's interesting research he did when he was working with Booz Allen Consulting in US, where what they found was people who jump jobs a lot early in their career and people who stay with companies for a long time, they kind of did a research to see by the time they reach the end of their career, they end up making same title, same money, same recruitment money. I mean retirement money and everything. In the long run, it all balances out.
It does.
I'm not either or
Law of averages
law
always
of averages. Yes. So
always plays.
I'm not saying stay at one place which not
Yeah,
suitable for you or not jump every year. Do whatever it does, but just letting you guys know that in the long run it all balances out. So make sure that you make are for the right reasons.
absolutely. I think that's a very powerful point Anil is trying to make, and I would also kind of second that. Every time all of you make those moves, the move has to be creating the next version of you, and the next move should create the next version of you. Else, it's just like jumping like monkeys, like Darwin talks about, and all of us as Homo sapiens are monkeys in our own heads, right? The temptation to jump like monkeys from branches to branches is always going to be there. But how long do I stay in one branch, which has helped me to find that version? Then I go for the search of the version 3, then the version 4, then the version 5. Is what Anil is talking about. So thank you, Anil. That was a fantastic conversation. I had one or two questions to ask you, but for interest of time, I'm going to keep that aside because what you brought from core values was very deep and very, very insightful. I'm sure many of the youngsters here, more than achievement, guys, it's about accepting that your core values will take you long, and it's all about longer meaning in life than a shorter happiness. It may sound very philosophical, it may sound very spiritual, but I think whether it is management or philosophy or psychology or spiritualism, I think all of them speak about the common element that it's all about finding a meaningful life. That's what all of us are doing. Anil, thank you so much for taking time and coming on to this particular event. I'll leave you with one last question. How was your experience and what's your thought on this concept of leaders and libraries and what we're doing with organizations?
No, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's just the whole preparation. The session was wonderful, but preparation was also very reflection. Reflection is a big part of anybody's journey, self-awareness and reflection. So I spent quite a bit of time reflecting, made some notes, and in fact, I'll go back and do my Mojo scorecard again because we always have some areas of Mojos we want to deal with, right? The downward spirals. So thanks. Hopefully, I found value. I found going back to the 4 building blocks, the book which influenced a lot, and it, it's always in preparation for sessions like this that you connect the dots backwards. This life is all makes sense when you connect dot backwards. So I didn't realize the book I read many years back actually helped me formulate my own personal system of being and doing goals. So I'm very grateful for that. So I
Thank you.
yeah, and now coming to, I think um, this model of leadership or leading through books is so powerful because in it's a big cliche that books are your best friends, but uh, there's a book for every occasion. There's a book for every season, and some you read end to end, some you get started. Like there's this. I know. There's this book by Jiddu Krishnamurti called "Truth Is a Pathless Land,"
Mm,
and so it's an interesting. I'm just giving an example because the
mm,
many books you read and when you get influenced, you read over and over. Like Alchemist, I've read 5 times, Mojo a couple of times, Prophet I keep reading, Leadership Pipeline I go back to the book every month whenever I'm working on a projects in leadership development. But there's this book by Jiddu Krishnamurti. Just let you know, there's books for every seasons. There's this paragraph in page 4 where he says, "We all have become second-hand people. There's no first-hand person. We're just copying others' ideas, living others' lifestyle, and there's stuff around that saying you've become a second-hand person." And it's page number 4, third paragraph. It's been many years. I never progressed beyond that paragraph. But that book did what it had to do with me.
Yeah.
Time I see the book there, it reminds me of the question: Are you being a second-hand
Yeah.
person or are you a first? What are the first-hand things you're doing in your life? So it did its work for you. So I think books really build those anchors. There's some books which are more practice driven, framework driven, where you just flip chapter to chapter, you see the frameworks, you see the
Some
visual.
are very deep, reflective.
Uh, and some you keep going back. So I think everything has a place, but I think this entire approach of leadership through learning, especially books, because whenever somebody has written a book, they've condensed uh, either generally their wisdom, their experience, sometimes their creativity into many years of creativity,
Correct.
them experience into a couple of pages. So we need to respect that. And some books are worth rereading because they give you the thrill and excitement, but some books are worth the rereading because you are not ready for it. You need to go back and you learn more. So from that perspective, I have a huge library. I generally have more books than what I can read, but the intention is I'm just planting the seed saying one day I'm get there, one day I'm going to finish this book. So more books than what I can read. And the idea is, it becomes a habit. So I think what you're doing is brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, Anil, for coming in. And thanks for those lovely words. I think the best part of the business that I'm doing is I'm just a courier boy. Great research done by great authors already. So that way it makes it easier to get people to reflect. I think very rightly said. A lot of us read books, but I always ask this question: How many of us implement the books? That's the fundamental question. I think the gap between reading book and implementing book is what I'm talking about. And as an organization and what I do, I stand exactly in that particular gap of helping a leader to move from a reader of a book to an implementer of the particular book. That's what all these authors do. So thank you so much, Anil, for coming in. It was a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to associate with you on different formats and methods. You have a lovely day. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the session. Thank you for bringing me in. All the best to the viewers and picking a feather from your comment. I'm going to, as I committed, go back to the Mojo book, do the scorecard again, relook at my Mojo and Nojo, and actually apply. So not just read. So I'm going to do that this week. So thank you.
Lovely, lovely. I'm happy that I could contribute somewhere infinitesimally small there towards the week of yours. Bye bye. You have a lovely week ahead. I'll connect with you
Thank
once again.
you.
Bye.
Same to you. Bye.